Welcome to another special episode of our Mandatory Mental Liberation series, produced by Baba Jalani Bumani Dembe, the founder of Majestic Mind Matters University. I'm your royal narrator, Queen Magical Melanin, for this new episode. The necessity of the Mandatory Mental Liberation series at Majestic Mind Matters University lies in our focus on serving our melanin-rich culture community. By addressing the importance of knowledge of self to produce greater self-awareness and advocating for our mental liberation, especially for our precious melanin-rich culture children, our messages aim to combat the enduring effects of generational mental enslavement stemming from the historical trauma of the chattel enslavement of the ancestors. Our initiative seeks to empower us to break free from these harmful and unfavorable legacies and cultivate a deep-rooted sense of self-identity and unwavering resilience. Now, let's get started with this very special message titled, Equity Matters, Addressing Racism Head-On. Racism is a complex and pervasive issue that goes far beyond simply holding prejudices against individuals based on their skin color. This is especially true when it comes to people with more melanin in their skin, often referred to as melanin-rich individuals. While prejudice is a component of racism, it is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to understanding the systemic and institutional nature of racism. Prejudice is defined as a preconceived opinion that is not based on reason or actual experience. This can manifest in the form of stereotypes, discrimination, and negative attitudes towards individuals based on their race or ethnicity. While prejudice is harmful in its own right, it is not enough to fully capture the depth and impact of racism on melanin-rich communities. Racism, on the other hand, is a system of power and privilege that reinforces structural inequalities based on race. It is deeply ingrained in society and operates at both the individual and institutional levels. For melanin-rich people, racism can manifest in a variety of ways, from everyday microaggressions to systemic barriers that limit access to education, employment, healthcare, and other resources. One key aspect of racism that goes beyond prejudice is the idea of privilege. White privilege, for example, refers to the societal advantages that white individuals benefit from simply because of their race. This privilege gives white individuals access to opportunities and resources that are often denied to melanin-rich individuals. This unequal distribution of power and privilege is a fundamental aspect of racism that cannot be explained by simple prejudice alone. Another important aspect of racism that goes beyond prejudice is the impact of historical and structural inequalities on melanin-rich communities. Centuries of colonization, slavery, and segregation have created a legacy of systemic racism that continues to shape the experiences of melanin-rich individuals today. This history of oppression has led to disparities in wealth, health, education, and other social indicators that persist to this day. In addition, racism is not just a personal belief or attitude, but a system of oppression that is perpetuated by institutions and structures in society. This can include laws and policies that discriminate against melanin-rich individuals, as well as cultural norms and practices that perpetuate racist attitudes and stereotypes. These institutional forms of racism can have far-reaching effects on the lives of melanin-rich people, limiting their opportunities and reinforcing inequalities. Furthermore, racism is not just an individual problem, but a collective one that requires a collective response. Addressing racism requires a commitment to social justice and equity, as well as a willingness to challenge existing power structures and systems of privilege. This may involve advocating for policy changes, supporting community initiatives, and challenging racist attitudes and behaviors in ourselves and others. Racism is more than just being prejudiced against individuals with more melanin. It is a systemic issue that is deeply ingrained in societal power structures and institutions. People of color face discrimination and inequality in various aspects of their lives, from economic disparities to biased media representation. Addressing racism requires understanding how these systems perpetuate racist ideologies and working towards dismantling them to create a more equitable society for all individuals. One of the key ways in which racism manifests itself is through institutional discrimination. Societal power structures, such as government policies, laws, and economic systems, often disadvantage people of color through discriminatory practices. For example, discriminatory housing policies contribute to residential segregation and unequal access to quality housing for people of color. This perpetuates cycles of poverty and limits opportunities for economic advancement. Additionally, racial biases in the criminal justice system lead to unequal treatment and harsher penalties for people of color, further exacerbating disparities in the system. Media representation also plays a significant role in perpetuating racist ideologies. Stereotypical and negative portrayals of people of color in movies, TV shows, and news coverage reinforce harmful stereotypes and perpetuate racist beliefs. The lack of diverse representation in mainstream media contributes to the dehumanization of people of color and reinforces negative perceptions about their communities. This, in turn, can lead to increased discrimination and violence against individuals with more melanin. Economic disparities are another consequence of systemic racism. People of color often face marginalization in the workforce, earning lower wages and experiencing higher rates of unemployment compared to their white counterparts. This limits their ability to accumulate wealth and perpetuates cycles of poverty within their communities. The economic inequalities faced by people of color are a result of discriminatory practices and unequal opportunities within the workforce, which further entrenches racial inequalities in society. White supremacy, a deeply ingrained belief in the superiority of white people over people of color, continues to perpetuate racist ideologies and inequalities. This belief has historical roots in colonialism and slavery, and has led to systemic racism and discrimination against people with more melanin. White supremacist ideologies continue to fuel racist attitudes and behaviors towards people of color, leading to further marginalization and oppression within society. The education system also plays a significant role in perpetuating racist ideologies. Eurocentric curricula often marginalize the experiences and contributions of people of color, reinforcing racial stereotypes and limiting opportunities for their success. This lack of representation in education perpetuates inequality and hinders the academic and social development of students of color. In order to address racism in the education system, it is crucial to center the voices and experiences of people of color and incorporate diverse perspectives into the curriculum. Racism is a pervasive issue that continues to plague societies around the world. While many people believe that racism is simply a matter of individual prejudice or discrimination, it is important to understand that racism is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that extends far beyond personal beliefs and actions. Specifically, racism against melanin-rich people involves not only individual prejudice, but also institutional discrimination that is deeply ingrained in various aspects of society, including the media. One of the key ways in which racism against melanin-rich people manifests is through institutional discrimination. This form of racism refers to the systemic and structural barriers that prevent people of color from achieving equality and experiencing the same opportunities as their white counterparts. Institutional discrimination is often invisible and operates on a subconscious level, making it particularly insidious and difficult to combat. Within the realm of media, institutional discrimination against melanin-rich people can be seen in a variety of ways. The portrayal of people of color in the media is often rife with stereotypes and negative tropes that perpetuate harmful beliefs about individuals with darker skin tones. For example, melanin-rich individuals are frequently depicted as criminals, drug dealers, or lazy, reinforcing the false notion that people of color are inherently inferior or dangerous. Additionally, the lack of representation of melanin-rich people in the media further contributes to the perpetuation of racist ideologies. When people of color are underrepresented or misrepresented in mainstream media, it creates a distorted and one-dimensional view of their experiences and identities. This lack of visibility can lead to the reinforcement of stereotypes and the marginalization of melanin-rich communities. Furthermore, bias in media reporting on issues related to race can also reinforce racist ideologies. The way in which stories are framed, the language used, and the overall tone of coverage can all contribute to the perpetuation of negative stereotypes and beliefs about people of color. When the media consistently presents melanin-rich individuals in a negative light, it can have far-reaching consequences, perpetuating discrimination and inequality in society. In order to combat institutional discrimination against melanin-rich people in the media, it is crucial for media outlets to critically examine their coverage and make a concerted effort to represent people of color accurately and fairly. This includes diversifying newsrooms, ensuring that diverse voices are heard, and challenging harmful stereotypes and biases in reporting. Furthermore, media consumers must also take an active role in combating racism in the media by being critical of the content they consume, calling out instances of bias or discrimination, and advocating for more inclusive and representative media coverage. By working together to address institutional discrimination in the media, we can begin to dismantle racist ideologies and create a more equitable and just society for all individuals, regardless of their skin color. Racism is more than just being prejudiced against individuals of a different race. It is a complex system of power and oppression that permeates every aspect of society. When examining racism in relation to melanin-rich people, it is crucial to understand that it is not simply about individual attitudes or actions, but rather about the ways in which systemic inequalities are perpetuated and enforced. One of the key ways in which racism manifests itself is through institutional discrimination. This refers to the ways in which laws, policies, and practices within institutions such as government, education, and the media disproportionately harm individuals of certain racial or ethnic backgrounds. In the case of melanin-rich people, institutional discrimination can be seen in the disproportionate rates of poverty, unemployment, and incarceration that they face. In the media, institutional discrimination takes the form of biased and discriminatory coverage of people of color. This can include perpetuating harmful stereotypes, misrepresenting their experiences, and amplifying racist ideologies. Consumers have a crucial role to play in holding media outlets accountable for perpetuating these harmful narratives. One way in which consumers can combat institutional discrimination in the media is by calling out biased or discriminatory reporting. This can be done through social media, letters to the editor, and complaints to the media outlet itself. By speaking out against racist coverage, consumers can help to raise awareness of the harmful effects of these portrayals and push for more fair and inclusive representation. In addition to calling out biased coverage, consumers can also take action by boycotting media outlets that consistently engage in racist reporting. By refusing to support outlets that perpetuate harmful stereotypes, consumers send a powerful message that this kind of coverage is not acceptable. Instead, they can choose to support media sources that prioritize diversity and accuracy in their representation of people of color. Education is also key in combating institutional discrimination in the media. By educating themselves and others on the harmful effects of racist stereotypes and misinformation, consumers can become more informed advocates for change. This knowledge can empower individuals to challenge biased reporting and demand more accurate and inclusive representation of melanin-rich people in the media. Furthermore, consumers can push for greater diversity and inclusion in media newsrooms. By demanding that people of color are adequately represented in decision-making roles, consumers can help to ensure that diverse perspectives are taken into account in the production of media content. This can lead to more authentic and accurate portrayals of melanin-rich people in the media. Another effective way to combat institutional discrimination in the media is to pressure advertisers to withdraw their support from outlets that engage in racist coverage. Economic consequences can often be a powerful motivator for change, and by targeting the financial support of these outlets, consumers can bring about meaningful shifts in the industry. By supporting and promoting alternative media sources that prioritize diversity and accurate representation, consumers can help to create more equitable and inclusive media landscape. In conclusion, racism is more than just being prejudiced against individuals of a different race. It is a pervasive system of power and oppression that affects melanin-rich people in profound ways. By recognizing and challenging institutional discrimination in the media, consumers can play a crucial role in promoting fair and inclusive representation of people of color. Through education, advocacy, and action, individuals can work towards creating a more just and equitable society for all. Racism is more than just individual prejudice. It is a systemic issue that is deeply rooted in societal power structures and institutions. People of color face discrimination and inequality in various aspects of their lives, from economic disparities to biased media representation. Addressing racism requires dismantling systemic structures that perpetuate inequalities and centering the voices and experiences of people of color in all aspects of society. By recognizing and challenging the ways in which racism manifests itself in society, we can work towards creating a more equitable and inclusive society for all individuals, regardless of their melanin levels. Racism against melanin-rich people is more than just personal prejudice. It is a pervasive and deeply ingrained form of institutional discrimination that permeates various aspects of society, including the media. By recognizing the ways in which racism manifests in the media and taking proactive steps to challenge and combat these discriminatory practices, we can work towards a more inclusive and equitable society for all individuals. Racism is more than just being prejudiced against melanin-rich individuals. It is a system of power and privilege that operates at multiple levels of society, perpetuating inequalities and injustices that impact the lives of melanin-rich people in profound ways. Addressing racism requires a holistic approach that addresses not only individual attitudes and behaviors, but also the institutional and structural roots of racism. Only by recognizing the complexity and depth of racism can we begin to dismantle it and create a more just and equitable society for all. I'm your royal narrator, Queen Magical Melanin. We trust that this special message has expanded your understanding through the insights shared by the producer Baba Jelani Bomani Dembe, founder of Majestic Mind Matters University, in our Mandatory Mental Liberation Series special message. Remember this, it is essential to honor the ancestors. We have a unique connection to the ancestors. They endured many unwarranted struggles, preserved our melanin-rich culture, and passed down invaluable wisdom through many generations. By honoring the ancestors, we pay honorable tribute to our roots and draw great strength and much-needed inspiration from the unwavering resilience and royal legacy that has paved the way for our present and future generations. Ancestral reverence is a powerful way for us to continually uphold our own melanin-rich identity, heritage, and cultural legacy. Here is an ancient Alkebulan proverb to keep in mind. If you think you are too small to make a difference, you have not spent the night with a mosquito. Remember this as well, whenever you are in the presence of anyone, saying, they don't see color, it actually means, they don't see you. We recognize that the name Alkebulan, instead of Africa, as a royal member of our melanin-rich culture nation, we must strive for knowledge of self for greater personal awareness. Always treat yourself kindly and seek to live a totally awesome and gloriously fulfilling melanin-rich culture life. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. So, like, subscribe, and share this very special melanin-rich culture link with everyone that you care about and that really cares about you and all of yours as well, and thank you for listening to this enchanting special message. Titled, Equity Matters. Addressing Racism Head-On. Ashe.